Hi, welcome back to the channel, English with Jay. I'm Jay, your private personal academic consultant. Today's video is for all of those teachers that have to write lesson plans. They're a nightmare. We know you've got to do lesson plans every day, all the time. And if you're a new teacher, or if you're just developing, you might find it difficult to take all of the content you've been given, the words, the grammar, the structure, the vocab, if you've got to teach. And how do you structure that into a plan? Yeah, that's going to be the most effective and efficient. So today, that's what we're going to be looking at. Don't forget, like, subscribe, share my videos, and hit that notification button for all my latest content. Let's get at it. So, you're a brand new teacher. It's your first day at school, your first week at school, your first semester, maybe even your first year. It does take a while to get up and running, you know, and you've been handed a book or a couple of books, you've been handed some content, you've been given a timetable, you know, you're getting to know your kids, but how do you take all of the information in the book and put it into a document that's going to help you be the most effective teacher you can be? Today, I'm going to introduce a classic content to you. It's called the PPP, and we'll be looking at that in just a moment. So, the first thing that's important to keep in mind is that lesson planning is essential. You can't just wing a class. You can't take a book, look at the words, come up with a couple of vague ideas and walk in. I used to work with a guy who was great. He was very funny, and he said that some of the teachers on his team use what we call a two-step lesson plan. And I was like, oh, great, what's that? And he goes, about 2 steps before you walk in the room, you start thinking about your plan. And it made me laugh. We can't be doing that. All right. I've been working with a lot of teachers for a lot of years now, coming up for 20 years in ESL. And what I've found is that most people don't plan to fail, you know, they just fail to plan. And a good solid lesson plan is probably one of the most helpful tools you're going to have. Today, we're not going to be talking about classroom management. We're not going to be talking about syllabus planning. All we're going to look at is a structure that you can use when planning content. Just keep it simple, okay? So what is the most important thing to keep in mind is this. A good lesson plan is actually going to save you time and energy in the long run. It might take you a bit more time at the beginning. It's a little bit like when we tried to shift teaching from teacher-centered to student-centered, or now we're online a lot, trying to teach stuff online. It takes a while to get the initial resources done. But eventually, once you've got a flow and a rhythm and a routine, it's going to be a lot easier for you. Trust me on this one, okay? New teachers out in Asia are expected to have 20 contact hours a week. In the past, I've had up to 30 when I've been very, very busy and we've been short on team members and stuff. But with a good structure, a good plan, a good routine, you can carry a much heavier load than you think you can, okay? Because keep in mind, this is an excerpt from a teaching book. Books should be closed more than open. What we are not trying to become are these teachers that walk into a room and say, good morning, class, everybody open your book to page 4, let's go. That's not how we do it. Or like, you know, Bueller, remember in the old days, the way that we used to teach in the 80s? Like, raise your hand if you know the answer, raise your hand if you know the answer. Let's not think that way. That's quite old-fashioned. Let's keep modern, all right? A good structure is going to be more engaging as well. The more prepared you are, the more engaged your students are going to be, all right? So the plan I want to show you today is a classic, all right? There are many others. Feel free to go and look in other books. Comment, message below. Let me know if you want me to do specific content for you guys. But this is your basically beginner's lesson plan, and it's called the PPP. All right, the PPP plan. And it's very straightforward. I'll take you through it briefly. Now, what I want you to notice is I've added a section at the top and at the bottom to this. I've added a warm-up or review, and I've added a warm-down. Okay, but the PPP in brief stands for present, practice, and produce. All right, it's going to keep you focused. It's going to keep you structurally on task. And if you look on the left side of the screen, you can see the percentage of times. Now, let's be clear about this. These percentages are guidelines. This is not a prescriptive, all right? It's prescriptive, not proscriptive. I'm outlining a structure, not directing you to do it. So, for example, at the beginning of a new unit, you would probably spend longer presenting the content to get the kids into it. When you're in the middle of the unit, There'll be more focusing on the controlled teacher structured practice. And then towards the end of a unit, you'll be more likely getting the kids producing content in a personalized manner. But as a general rule of thumb, the numbers that I've put down here is between 5 and 10% of a warm-up. So let's presume a class is a 50-minute class, because that's a nice easy number. 5 minutes. It's pretty easy. You're going to present the content of the day. All right, this is the teacher structure. This is a teacher-led part of the day. That's going to be about, I think, about 10 minutes, all right, 20%, something like that. You know, it can vary, like I said. There's also going to be a 30% to 40%, maybe even 50% of actual communicative activity. Getting the kids to communicate. Today is not going to be a CLT or a communicative language teaching video. It's just about lesson planning. Go to my other videos for that, all right? And production or personalization. And at that end point, I like to have a wrap up or warm down, all right? Let me take you through this in a bit more detail, and then I will give you a working example. Oh, that's the thing I forgot to say. At the end of each class, don't forget to self-assess and reflect. I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. What that means is you grab yourself a pen, you grab yourself your lesson plan that you've already got printed or written out, and you're going to make notes post-activity. For example, this worked really well. Try and do that again and make it harder. This was difficult for them. Review it again before we play it again. This was too easy. Kids knew this already. However, this particular student needs a bit more assistance. This kind of thing, all right? Keep yourself up to date. If you've got a bunch of classes each week, you're going to find it difficult to remember your notes. It's not okay just to keep them up here. Please trust me on this one, all right? So the warm-up, all right? The warm-up, what is your target here? Your target, firstly, by the way, is to get rid of the nonsense in their heads, all right? Kids, young learners, they're out. They're out playing. They're out with their friends. They're teenagers, they're going through a whole social life of their own that we forget as teachers. The last thing on their mind when they're entering your classroom is you and your content, all right? So the warm-up is to get what we call authentic attention. Also to remind them of your rules and the expectations of them, and to reactivate previously learned knowledge. And also, it gives them confidence, because in a warm-up, there's no new content, okay? It's content-free procedural practices. If you don't know what that is, again, this isn't a classroom management video, but you need procedures in your room. You need to exercise the muscle of that procedure. You need to do it without content. Look up a guy called Rick Smith, Conscious Teaching. He's very cool, all right? You need to get the kids relaxed. You need them to be confident. If they're doing an activity that they can succeed in, they're going to feel more confident about themselves. So in the next part, you're going to lead into newer content, and they're not going to be so uncomfortable addressing the newer content. If you don't know the TPR, you see a little red asterisk here. If you don't know TPR, again, this isn't an academic classroom management or an activities session. This is only about lesson planning, all right? If there's any words here you don't know, like chain drills, okay, brainstorming, these things, you need to look into that. Word banks, routines, chants, TPRs. Now, second section, all right, the presentation. This is more old-fashioned in a way. This is kind of like the teacher-centered moment. You're going to be standing at the front of the room. You're going to be introducing flashcards or media or simulacra, simulacrum, which is an object that is the object or represents the object. Look into that a little bit. And you're going to be making sure that the kids are, or the students, should I say, are able to say the vocabulary correctly, have been introduced to the structure of the grammar in the correct order. Slow and steady, and very, very controlled at this point. You don't need too many words, all right, guys? You can read my screen. I'm not going to read every word on this page to you. You can read that yourself. But basically, you're going to need if you're dealing with very young learners, like 4, 5, 6-year-olds, about 6 words is plenty. If you're dealing with young learners from the age of about 7 up, 12, 13 or something, or 10, 11, 12, you can do about 8, 9 words. Older students up to 10 or 12. If you go up to adults, the number actually drops back down again because their brain isn't so elastic, all right? Look into these keywords here, okay? Now, We've got the part that's the actual practice, right? So what you've done is you've given your students some knowledge. You've given them some words. You've given them some grammar. You've practiced it with them. You are now expecting them to do an activity whereby they can use that in a controlled way. An example would be a communicative language survey. Say, for example, you've been doing like and dislike. You might want the students to go and survey 10 friends. Who likes what? Who doesn't like what? You might be able to convert that into some STEM. You might be able to do a maths graph or a bar chart from that. If it's a grammar drill you're doing, you might wish to give them, here's a great one I love, you'll find videos on my YouTube for this. You'll give them 6 words or grammar points. You give them a dice, you play some music, you give them 2 minutes. Student 1 rolls the dice. Number 3, they say to student 2, do you like apples? Student 2 looks, says, no, I don't. Number 3 is an apple. Student number 2 takes the dice, rolls it. Number 1's a banana. Oh, do you like bananas? Yes, I do. No, I don't. All right. You can take that grammar all the way up to what did he do yesterday? What was he doing a year ago? You just give them the visual information, 6 structures, roll a dice, ask a friend. Of course, all of this needs good classroom management. All right, this is really important. This part of your lesson is not going to work without decent classroom management. Your ability to get them into teams quickly, get them out of teams quickly, your ability to get them silent quickly, your ability to get them raising their hands so they're not cross-talking. This is all very important. If you look under the activities column, MAT, model action talk, TPR, total physical response, look into this stuff. Okay, pair work, group work, out of the box thinking, all right? This is the bit where you are going to flex your teacher muscles. Okay, the next part is the produce part. Okay, now produce or personalization is, it might be as simple as doing the book. I tend to never do the books in class, really. I tend to use books as homework, right? All a book is, a book is 3 things. This is really important to me, my own thinking. A book is 3 things. Number 1, it's your scope. What does that mean? Scope. How much are you teaching? What's appropriate for a grade 13 student to learn? Is it the same as a grade 4 student? Of course not. So the scope is important. That's been written for you by professional educators, by academics. Then there's the sequence, scope, sequence. Sequence is the order you do it in. Okay, there's plenty of classic textbooks out there about how language is learned, and there is an order to it. An example would be, you can't learn plurals before you've learned singular. You shouldn't be learning past tense or continuous tense till you've learned the simple tense. Things like that. The third thing the book is, and this is what a lot of people misunderstand, the book is no more than a collection of useful worksheets. So you don't have to go on computer, make a worksheet, go online, download. That's what the book is. The book is just a collection of 4 or 5 sheets for the kid to help produce, to prove to the teacher that they understand the content. The book is not a teacher. The book is not the start and end of your life. The book is a guide. And that's really important, okay? But in other productions could be, say they've gone and done a survey. You then want them to come and write up that survey. This is the production time, right? Dave and Mary both like to eat apples, however, I don't. Personalizing about their friends and themselves. Maybe you've been doing past tense verbs, which is going to come up in a minute. And the production part is to write me a diary of what you did yesterday, about you and your life. So now that's really important there. And then the wrap up, the warm down. You know, you want the class to end on your terms, not theirs. Just like you want it to start on your terms, not theirs. That's all that means. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is your energy of the classroom. Okay, the energy of your classroom is really important to me. What I want to go through is my way of looking at the energy of my classroom. And what I mean by energy is not like the focus. I just mean you could say just the volume in the room. That's another way of looking at this idea, that just is, if the room's being loud, it's quite a high energy. Now, if they're being loud because of an activity you've constructed, you've presented, and you want the kids to be loud, that's great. If they're being loud because you're not controlling them, then you need to go back to the classroom management. But what I want to talk about now is what I've observed over the last bunch of years working with different teachers about how they haven't really considered the 3-dimensional picture. You've got 50 minutes, right? Or an hour, right? Or 40 minutes, however long your class is, or 2 hours, or 3 hours. Who knows? When we do seminars for teachers, they can be 3 days, 7 hours a day kind of thing. And you can't just have this flat energy, non-stop instruction like that, okay? It gets very boring very, very quickly. So let me very briefly take you through what I consider to be different forms of energy profiles. So different forms of energy profiles in a lesson. You look down the left, we've got the energy level or the volume or the amount of activity in the room. And on the bottom, we've got our timeline, right? Over time, over an hour or 50 minutes. Let me just take you through some of the things I've observed, okay? Now, I used to have to observe a lot of teachers for my job working for a book company. And sometimes it was quite difficult to really explain to teachers what the issue in their class was. So I came up with this concept. So this is what I call a constantly increasing energy line. Now, this, for example, is a teacher that walks into a room and the kids are all waiting. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know. Whether they're like robots and they're all scared, I don't know. But generally the kids are ready. That's probably one way of putting it better. That the teacher before them has set them up for the next class. Or they're kids with a good internal procedural structure from their homeroom teacher. You walk in and the kids are ready. And they're silent. So the energy is really low at the moment. Then, through a lack of planning, a lack of structure, and a lack of self-reflection, the kids slowly start getting louder and louder and louder, and it doesn't really stop. And the teacher's completely unresponsive to this. The teacher's not really even taking any action to bring this back to a healthy level. And by the end of the class, due to the incompetence of the teacher, basically it's a nightmare. The kids are just going crazy. You see that a lot with younger kids. Or if it's older kids, you might just see just them basically talking, cross-talking, and not interested in you whatsoever. And you are just talking over them, adding to the noise. That's something to avoid. The opposite now, this is kind of the more Victorian, draconian teacher where the kids are crazy. You're walking in and it's just, the kids are going wild. It's fun. Fun for them. You come in and you just start going, you're shouting at them and you're banging on the board and you're being really, really old-fashioned and Victorian. You've got no classroom management. You don't know what you're doing. And all you're doing is browbeating these kids. Shut up, and that sends me crazy too. Gives me a headache being in those rooms. And eventually, over the hour, 50 minutes, you can eventually browbeat the kids into shutting up. That's not very good either. Certainly not very efficient or effective, and certainly not healthy. Certainly not how I do not agree with shouting at students. I don't see the need for that. There's another level I see. I've seen this in some of the very big schools, like the very big government schools. I live in Asia, right? Not in England. I'm not commenting on the English or American system, but in where I live, the government schools are underfunded and they've got like 50 kids in the room, 60 kids in the room. It's hot. There's no air conditioning. The doors are open to let the air through. So there's all this volume coming in from outdoors. The windows are open. There's kids doing sports outside your classroom. And it's just a nightmare. You can't walk through the room. The desks are tight. And what ends up happening is you just end up with this insanity. I see that a lot. And some teachers, especially the inexperienced ones, really think they're doing great. They think, oh, wow, look at all the energy in my room. But what you really got is just an environment of noise. And the teacher's just contributing to that by shouting over them. All right. This is a teacher with zero attempt at classroom management. All right. They just think the louder the kids are, the more fun it is for everybody. And that's something new. That's something young, new ESL teachers do. They think that I used to be there myself. I used to think that the more fun my kids were having, the better teacher I was. But it wasn't educational fun. It was just them ruling the classroom. This is probably the the least negative of the ones I'm presenting. It's kind of like a teacher that's managed to not go crazy, but they're not boring. But that's kind of what you get in your second or third year as a teacher when you've kind of getting your structure set up. But it's still very flat. That there's no three-dimensional aspect to this lesson. Now, this is the teacher that maybe you're more likely to find this with older students, where the kids are just sitting there deflated, de-energized, and the teacher's tired. The teacher's been doing it a bunch of years, or the teacher's personality isn't really into this ESL vibe where you need to be interesting and engaging, and you need to enjoy your class too. You get a lot of teachers who are just going to walk in and be like, morning class, open the book to page 7. What we're going to do is look at this. Okay, everyone write down this, do that. And the kids are checking out. You've seen this in secondary classes, especially out here where kids often have their mobile phones out and they're just on Facebook at this point. That's not only a failing of your lesson planning, but a failing of your classroom management. All right. So let me just, having said that, I'm now going to move you on to my kind of plan that I'd like to aspire to. Now, this is not a template. What I'm going to say is I'm not going out onto YouTube and telling the world your lesson plan needs to match mine. This is a profile. This is one profile for one lesson in a certain part of my unit. This would probably be around the middle of my unit. Okay, don't forget all these times and energy things are flexible according to what part of the class you're in, what part of the lesson you're teaching. All right, so I've got my entrance or my threshold. If you want to know about thresholds and things like this and good classroom management, check out my other videos, but I can recommend you look up Teach Like a Champion. Teach Like a Champion. You can find them on YouTube and they've got a great book. This is about you starting the classroom at your rules, on your terms, not the students, all right? And you notice we're not at 0, but I do need them to be quiet and listening to me at this point. I do need complete attention. This is what we call 100%, 100%. That means 100% of the kids focusing and paying attention 100% of the time. That comes from Teach Like a Champion. Look into that. You need to be really on task to achieve that. Then I'm going to raise the level up with a warm-up. We've just done that lesson plan, right? My 5 to 10%. I'm going to get the kids engaged, woken up, get some authentic attention. Then I'm going to use what we call a recall or an attention getter or a call and response. This is not a lesson on that. That's under classroom management and that's under teaching techniques. This is only about lesson planning, but a recall is where you say, class, and the kids go, yes, or you go, eyes on me, and all the kids grab their desk and stare at you. It basically is a very fun, healthy way of saying, please stop talking and look at me. 100%, 100% at that point. I would then spend some time presenting. You'll notice that the energy level is lower here because I need to be teacher-centered, teacher-focused. I need to be showing them the words, listening to them repeating after me, and confirming that they have got the pronunciation correct. For example, if you're teaching in Asia, it wouldn't be acceptable for me to hold up an apple and say to them, repeat after me, I like apples. And the kids go, I pan, I pan. At that point, you want to make a note. They're struggling with these words. Practice it a little bit more. Don't wait until the activity to start getting their pronunciation down. That's the wrong time for that. Then you'll notice the energy slowly rising and plateauing as we start practicing. As the kids stand up and walk around the classroom interviewing each other, as the kids work in pairs, as you put the music on, as you put a visual timer up, the energy level is going to rise slightly to about the mid-level. That's very healthy. That's good. That's English talking, right? This is all in English at this point. Then I do another recall, bring them down again. We keep it fun. I won't be too strict. I don't need 100% at this point. I'm going to let them, we're doing well. Everyone's healthy and happy and learning English together. I then need them to work in pairs or singularly to produce some work, or in teams. So if this was a project, this would be where their class would be collaborating in groups of 2, 3, 4 to create the graph, to create the presentation, the skit, whatever it is we're asking them to do. And then I'll recall them, get them down to near 0 and say goodbye. Do a bit of with the older kids, I'd probably review my lesson plan, go back over it with them, show them what we've learned. With the younger kids, it'd be a see you later song. With middle-aged kids, with middling students who are about, 9 to 13, that kind of age, it would be the points board. It would be the awards, the extra merits, okay? Let me give you a working example of this. Okay, let's be clear on what we're about to look at now. Now I'm going to show you a working example of a lesson plan, an actual lesson that I did. Now, what I want to explain very quickly at the beginning and be very explicit about this is that the document is not the formal school submitted lesson plan. There's not enough detail for that. There's no vocab, there's no learning objectives, there's no grammar, there's no resource lists, There's no links to websites or resources. This needs to be on the document if you're submitting it to your supervisor. What I need to do today is show you how I think about it. It's just a document that I use for my own notes. Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But anyway, let's look at my sample document, okay? So, a working example, okay? First thing I want to do is show you what I was asked from me is I've helped out a few different schools over the years, and I had one school in the south of Thailand where I live who had hired a bunch of reasonably inexperienced teachers. They weren't really teachers. They were kind of like backpackers with a TOEFL. And they were all good people, and they were all intelligent, but without some explicit structure for them, they were unable to create productive lesson plans, effective and efficient lesson plans. So the owner of the school asked me to write a simple, self-working, easy-to-use document to help structure their thinking and planning. So that's what I'm going to show you now. So this is the basic document. All right, you'll notice I've really made it kind of idiot-proofed, okay? This is just private notes with some advice on each different section. Each of the green arrows implies you need a transition strategy. How are you going to transition into that next part? Transition times in a class are quite often where teachers lose their class. Okay, this is where you lose the focus, you lose your attention. But let's just go through this very quickly, a section at a time. The warm-up, energizer, motivator, yeah? So my notes here are 5 to 10% of the lesson, all right? Look at my notes. Get the students awake and brains turned on in English. Use this moment along with classroom entrance procedures to establish the tone of your expectations. Pretty straightforward. Then the green arrow there, transition strategy. Would it be a clap? Would it be an eyes on me? Would it be non-verbal? Would you ring a bell? Would you turn the lights on and off? At the end of the activity, are you playing music during the activity? If so, does turning the music really loud then off? Would that work as a good non-verbal cue? Do you want to use a funny whistle or a duck call or a squeezy toy that makes a funny sound? It's a lot better than going, okay guys, stop talking now, listen to me, listen to me. Okay, that's classroom management, okay? After that, introduction of new content, right? So confirm students understand the topic or have times to brainstorm in small groups. New vocabulary should be introduced and practiced in a clear way to ensure students' understanding. That's it. Again, we're not, on another video I'll talk about choraling, about getting the kids to repeat after you, and that's more a technical part. But just today we're talking about planning, and only planning. Then you've got an activity you've created, something student-centered, preferably something communicative, preferably something where the kids are being proactive, active learning, right? Get students up and moving, speaking English. Oh, I've actually got a spelling mistake there. 2 of them. Can you see that? I'm not going to deny it, and I'm not going to edit this. Okay. Spreking English and saying each other. Excellent. I'll go back and change that. I'm not going to take it out of the video. It's a funny mistake. So yes, get students up and moving and speaking English. Surveying each other, doing opinion polls and other activities loosely monitored by the teacher. So you are the curator at that point. You're walking around the room. You're listening for errors. If you're hearing errors, you're not correcting them. Taking your notepad and you're writing it down. If you notice that a lot of students are doing the same errors repeatedly, you've probably not explained it correctly. You just go back and do it again at another time. If you notice it's 1 or 2 students doing the same error over and over again, you might want to do a differentiated class where you pull them aside at another day and give them some extra help. But you don't interrupt their speaking activity to correct them. And then production of content. So students should be able to independently, again, there's another spelling mistake on this one. So I'm obviously not the world's greatest person using Microsoft Word. Never mind. Students should be independently constructing language based on the skills taught and be made and the work should be made personal about their life experiences and opinions. I have a feeling when I was writing these instruction boxes, I was probably in a massive hurry. So I'll go back and correct those, I promise. And the last thing you're going to do is wrap up. So you just end the class on your terms, give them some positive feedback, any of your end of class procedures that you've got, you run through that. All right. So Let me give you a real example. Like I said, I was asked to give a cover class to a lower secondary room, and their English was unknown to me. There were about 35 kids in the room. I had some expectations that they were literate. Yeah, so I knew that they could read and write. I knew that they could basically deconstruct language and reconstruct it, but I didn't know if they were fluent or not. Plus, it was a grammar lesson. So in this lesson plan, my subjects I was approaching were parts of speech. Could they identify verb, noun, adjective, adverb, pronoun? Parsing. If you don't know what parsing is, look it up. But it's basically identifying parts of speech in a text. Verbs. That was my focus. We were going to go down to verbs. How good were they at verbs? And how good were they at conjugating to past tense? So Sam is kicking a ball. Sam kicked the ball. That kind of very basic stuff. And I used a simple piece of writing called Sam's Ball. It's very easy because my task was not comprehension at this point. It was parts of speech. However, the comprehension was very simple for them. So let me very, very quickly take you through this lesson plan. And you'll notice it's not brain surgery. I know that there are much more detailed ways of writing lesson plans out there. What today's focus is, I keep saying this to remind anyone who's going to start trolling me out there, that this is about how I want you to think about planning. This is not necessarily the government authorized form that you submit. I just want you to think in the planning mindset. It's really important. So, warm up, what did I do? There we go. Call and response. Practice with full attention and eyes on me. I say class, you say yes. Class, yes. Excellent. Eyes on me. Yes, boss. Or yes, Jay. Whatever they want to do. Make teams of 2, 3, 4 and check overtly they did it quickly and correctly within 5 seconds. That is one of the content-free procedural practices. I need to know that my team can get in and out of small groups quickly and effectively and efficiently without losing 15% of my contact time. Excellent. Next thing, I asked them to brainstorm parts of speech for 2 minutes, 38 seconds, played music in the background. I'm not going to focus too much on classroom management here, but this is a technique. Give them a very specific, unusual time and play music in the background, followed by a non-verbal communication that the time's up. Toss around a ball then. Sometimes I don't have a ball. Sometimes, I don't know, I've been asked to jump into a room at the last minute. So I'll grab a piece of paper, screw it up, and throw that around the room. So I'll go first, guys. I'm going to say adjective. Yes. Mary, your turn. She's going to go, noun. Okay, Mary, throw the ball to somebody else. Pronoun. Excellent, excellent. I'm writing these up on the board. Yeah? Get some illicit, some vocab out of them. And as we're doing that, I will ask for examples. Give me an example of a pronoun. Give me an example. And that's 10 minutes of my class. 5 to 10 minutes of my class. Easy times. Okay, introducing the new topic, the new subject, the new content for the day. And I don't forget, I didn't know these kids in this example. So, in teams, read through the text, Sam's Ball for 2 to 4 minutes. It was a very simple piece of text. It was about 200 words. It was not a lot. Check comprehension, pass around plastic mics as they read a few sentences aloud. A plastic mic, plastic microphone, or any kind of prop. And I read the first thing, it's Saturday afternoon and Sam and his friends are in the park. I'll sit down and they read it around. Then I will elicit, lots of eliciting. Where are they? That's right, they're in the park. Whose friends are they? Sam's friends. Excellent. Who can point to Sam in the picture? Excellent. So you elicit by pulling out content from the students, not pushing it into them. It's very important. If you hear any teacher say this, is that Sam, yes or no? That's a closed-ended question. It's a bad question. Or you might even hear this one. Is that Sam, yes or no? Say yes. That's not even teaching at that point. All right. Then student-centered, in their small groups, pass the text underlying all the verbs. I want them to then conjugate the verbs, the relevant verbs into the past tense, remembering only the initial verb. There's no conjunction is present, okay? Review the text on a PowerPoint. Ask the students to assess their own performance. Get them to check with each other. All right. Then individually, but working with their friends if they need help, they could write 3 to 5 sentences about what they did this week in the past tense. Refine their text in small groups, let them swap, let them correct each other's work, let them feed back to each other, make sure their accuracy is high, then they come and present to the room. Wonderful, they're producing it out of their life. The follow-up to this would be then we would start doing a diary project. And all diaries are in past tense, generally. Day diary. Today I went swimming. Yeah. Like I said, this was my first contact with these students. And then we ended up discussing the importance of past tense verbs. We talked about how much of their day they spend talking in the past tense, things like that. That was a 50-minute lesson for me. Then we had lesson 2, lesson 3. I had them 3 times that week, all right? And each of the lessons, actually, let me go back one lesson. Well, you'll notice my warm-up for lesson 2 is a lot longer because I now have established a couple of routines with them. I've established our procedures and our routine, and I am also aware of what they can do and what they can't do, because I didn't know them first. So I thought it would be good to sort of flesh that out a little bit. Okay, and then as we went through the week, we slowly built up on that same piece of work. It was 3 hours or 3 sessions over the week. And this all followed on with Sam's ball, and we slowly extended it. We did a bit of sentence correction and all this kind of stuff. All right, now, this is important, guys. You need a copy of your plan. You need a copy of your plan. Don't leave it at the classroom, in the staff room. I went to observe teachers in the past, and I've said, so take me through your plan, please. And they said, oh, I didn't bring it with me. It's in the office, or it's on the computer in the school Dropbox or in the school folder. That's no good. And I've tried that. You write a lesson plan out and they say, okay, now tell me about it without looking at the document. It's much harder. It's much, much easier to have the document in front of you. And I still do that. I take in my notes to my class with me. I'll type up a document and send it to my boss. Yeah, but then I will also have my handwritten notes or a printed version of that I walk in with a pen in one hand and my notes in the other hand, and I'm making notes constantly. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, these are my handwritten plans. Every single one of them is a different room. It's going to clutter up your desk, but you need to keep a record of this, all right? You need to feed back to yourself. You need to write notes in the red. You see that? I'm making notes to myself. Okay, this is another one of the people that works with me. She's very good at making like detailed plans to herself. These are notes to herself. As you'll notice, we're doing ticks where we've managed to accomplish something, and crosses where it didn't work, or we ran out of time. If you end up with too many crosses, run out of time, we then do a lesson plan session and we talk about getting your timing right. Okay, now that's kind of the end of this 30-minute lesson. Session on lesson planning. Okay, please like, subscribe, share, hit the notifications. All right, I am trying to grow this channel. We've got 20,000 subscribers already, and 1 or 2 of my videos have quite a few views. Help me share. You can also look at the channel English with Jay. All right, please subscribe here, and you'll find hundreds and hundreds of videos. There's at least 200 or 300. A bunch of academic instructional videos like this, and a bunch of real life activities, actual classes with me and my team working, okay? You can also find me on Facebook, Jay Richardson. I reply to all comments and all messages, I promise, okay? And I have a Facebook page, which is mainly in Thai, and it's EAC School, English Academic Consultant School, all right? Now, I wanna say thank you very, very much to everybody, all right? Thank you for your time. And I hope to see you all very, very soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.